Hello, Thrive Nation. Got a big treat for you, a special African hero, a legend around the globe. I've been listening to him for a while. He's got two amazing books, but I could introduce him. He's got an incredible website. It's just phenomenal. And here at Made to Thrive, we are involved with transformation, change, sustainable change. So I'm going to ask the first question. Who is Kute Blackson?
Wow, who is Kute Blackson? That is the ultimate question. You know, who am I? I'm a lover of life. I am a man on a mission committed to inspiring humanity to remember who they really are. I am an author, a teacher. Wow, you know, I'm a soul on a quest. I'm a soul evolving through time and space.
Beautiful. What a lovely answer. Just multifactorial, multidimensional, actually, and a transformational teacher you are. So, Kute, I've been working in the medical field 23 years as a physician here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And the biggest problem that I have is people don't know how to sustain their transformation. They come in very sick. They come in very ill. Often they come in with chronic pain. They're struggling. Their relationships are in tatters. They get things right often 3 months, 6 months, maybe 9 months, and it all falls apart. So tell us about transformation, about sustaining your transformation. Give us a little bit of a roadmap and a process in terms of how people can transform, but not only how they can transform, how they can sustain their transformation.
Yeah, you know, I think transformation is something that is really important. In terms of healing, I think many times physical symptoms, you know, a backache, shoulder ache, neck ache, some temporary physical ailment, or an ongoing disease, or even like an emotional pain. To me, pain on some level, emotional depression, lack of energy, lack of joy, feeling of heaviness, that emotional pain, temporary physical pain, ongoing physical pain in the manifestation of disease is to me a manifestation of something deeper. And so pain to me is a signal, is a messenger, is actually a blessing. Yeah. And yet as human beings, what we tend to do when we feel pain, we tend to deny it, we tend to suppress it, we tend to disconnect from it, we tend to run away from it, we drink it away, sex it away, drug it away, smoke it away, you know, social media it away, meditate it away, yeah, which is a kind of another form of spiritual bypass. And we don't truly ask ourselves, what is the feedback? What is the message of this pain? Yeah. So if we learn to start seeing pain as feedback, pain as a blessing, pain as a messenger, that it's really showing us some part of ourselves that we have denied, we've suppressed, we're not paying attention to, then we can use the pain to course correct. But then we can use the pain to shall we say, feel the pain so that we can let go. And the pain that we don't feel, what we don't acknowledge, manifests as an ongoing disease, illness. And so often transformation doesn't sustain because we haven't truly dealt with the deeper level of emotion, feeling, and pain. And so when we don't deal with those deeper layers of emotion, feeling, and pain, then we will tend to gravitate back towards the set point of the unresolved issues that we haven't dealt with. And so I see a lot of people doing great meditations, opening the pineal gland, seeing the blue light, spiritual practice, biohacking, hacking, spirit hacking, whatever you want to call it, but they haven't really dealt with the psychological, physical, mental, emotional, human shit that doesn't really disappear. And a lot of what we do is we put an overlay on it to feel temporarily good in the moment rather than authentically releasing, dealing, clearing it. And so pain is a blessing, you know, disease is a signal, and we have to start learning to pay attention to what the real message is. And so for me, real health starts on an inner level. A lot of people focus on the physical level, you know, cryotherapy, this, chiropractic, all of those are great, yeah, but I think it has to come from the inside out. And a lot of people focus on, for instance, diet and what am I eating, but we don't focus on, well, what's eating me from the inside. Yeah. And so when we really, okay, so let me just give people a practical place to start. Yeah. If someone's looking for, okay, how do I have a breakthrough? How do I have a shift? How do I have a healing? How do I have a transformation? I think one of the things that keeps us stuck are all the ways that we lie to ourselves, all of the ways that we don't tell ourselves the truth, all of the ways that we suppress our truth. You know, we feel pain, we suppress it, we deny it, we drink it away. We stay in relationships that don't feel truly aligned, where we're not in love, and we suppress a part of us. We betray parts of ourselves to get love from people that we think are going to make us happy. You know, we work jobs that we hate. And so all of this, we lie to ourselves as human beings for many reasons, which we can get into. And so I think one place to begin is really just asking ourselves, what lies am I telling myself? What lies am I telling myself? There is no real healing, real transformation without truth. You can drink all the green juice on the planet, and I'm not saying it won't help, but if you're lying to yourself and not dealing with your truth, and you're betraying yourself and living out of integrity, right, and doing things that you hate, and then the green juice for me can only take you so far. It has to come from the inside. And so I think health, so often we've taken an outside in approach rather than an inside out approach. And so just starting with, okay, what lies am I telling myself? To me, truth is real yoga. Truth is real spiritual practice. Truth is real meditation. Truth is real religion. Truth is real therapy. Truth is real prayer. If we start telling ourselves the truth and then feeling the feelings that we've learned to suppress by living the lie, we will start to release the energetic, emotional blockages that we're carrying. And disease is a manifestation of energy, emotional stuff that we haven't dealt with. And so when we deal with the truth, face the truth, feel the truth, release those emotions and feelings, that is going to affect our health on an ongoing level and make it more sustainable. So what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? So what I would also say is, people, we can take the pressure off of ourselves from even having to take action. Because sometimes the fear of the consequence of the action that we're going to take is what causes us to not take action, causes us to not acknowledge the truth, causes us to stay in a fog of, I'm confused, I don't really know, I'm not sure. And so then we start lying to ourselves as a self-protective mechanism. And so what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? And then sitting with, but what is the cost? What is the cost of the lie? What is the cost of not dealing with this? What is the cost? Because we sometimes think, well, I'm not going to deal with this feeling. I'm not going to deal with the situation. But what we don't deal with, we will have to deal with, and we will end up having to face it in our lives. And so I think one of the best ways to really get healthy is, health is an inner experience. You know, Brilliant. It's an inner experience by being in touch with who and what we really are. And I believe on a spiritual level, there's an innate intelligence already inside of us. And when we release and clear the blockages, the mental, emotional, spiritual blockages, we're able to rest back into that dimension of our being that is always already whole, perfect, and complete. You cut your finger, it knows how to heal itself. You don't have to do a special, something super duper. There's an intelligence that knows how to heal itself. And so I think we've kind of disconnected from our own natural intelligence in some ways. And so
fantastic.
Yeah,
well, look, I think there's a lot there, and let's sort of just distill it a little bit, because you've got a brilliant book, You Are the One. And I think of my 6-year-old daughter. I've got an 18-year-old son, and I've learned so much in the 12 years, and she's 6 years old. So I'm trying to embed in her a truth that she can hold on to, that the self-talk that she has is one of truth and not lies. So what are those big truths? I mean, I've been focusing on purpose with my little daughter, saying you have a unique purpose, you have a uniqueness to you, you have a unique field to you, you have a unique influence, you've been born for a time like this. You can only do what you can do. And that's what I've been embedding her and speaking to her, because she's like just a sponge, and she's just receiving a lot of these words now. How could you sort of expand on the truth? Because here you got a really open mind, someone who trusts their father and mother, unconditionally. What other truths would you give them so that they don't believe the lies?
Yeah, I think it's less about what you're saying. Speaking is important, but I think it's not just about what you say. There's a few things. Your children will often act out your unresolved, incomplete, patterns from your own consciousness. And you know, you're laughing because maybe you see it, you're playing out, right?
Sure.
You know, your children will often play out and act out your unconscious, unresolved issues from your childhood, and even the unconscious, unresolved issues from generations, parents, generations, ancestral patterns, ancestral addictions. And so as parents, I really think one of the most important things that you can do to impact your child is to heal your unresolved shit, to heal your unresolved wounding so that you can connect with your own wholeness again. Otherwise, unconsciously, that energy tends to be passed on to your children, and they will end up acting it out, and you will end up watching them act out what you haven't dealt with in your own subconscious. Your own subconscious plays out in the form of them because they're so connected to you. So, number one, you as a parent, as a human being, doing your own healing work to forgive, to release, to clear, to get in touch with who you really are, to live your purpose, to live in integrity, to live authentically, to cultivate a life where you feel joy and truth and honor and authenticity is the greatest gift you can give your child, because they're going to be raised in that osmosis, in the environment, and through osmosis they're going to take in the energetic of your being, the energetic of your consciousness. And your consciousness is a frequency that they are going to feel and imbibe and take on and learn from. So that's number one. As a parent, the greatest gift you can give them is your transformed consciousness, your elevated consciousness. That's number one. You know, a lot of parents will say, but I don't have time. You can't afford not to if you want your child to have a foundation that is more enlightened. Number two, from that more awake and enlightened space, from that more awake and enlightened consciousness as a parent, you are able to see who you really are beyond your own layers of conditioning. You'll know that you aren't just your stories and what your parents told you and those thoughts in your mind of, I'm not enough, this, that, blah, 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 which are just labels and stories that we make up. You will know that that's not who you are. You will know. You'll be more in touch with your own essence, your own true, pure divinity, your own true, divine self, your own purity, your own wholeness. And from that place of seeing who you really are, you will be able to give your child the greatest gift. And one of the greatest gifts you can give them is not money. Is not shoes, although it's great. It's not clothes, watches, although great. You know, it's not cars and mansions. One of the greatest gifts we can give our children is to see who they really are in a world that doesn't see them, in a world that's constantly conditioned them to believe you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're just an ego, you're not enough, you're just this body, you're not enough, you're limited, you're limited, you're limited, you're limited. When they look into your eyes, and you as their parent don't just see their humanness, don't just see their ego, don't just see their stories and their foibles. You look into their eyes and you see their divine essence. You act as a pure mirror to remind them that you are a spark of the divine. So in a world that causes them to go to sleep and go into a coma, into a coma of unconsciousness, you are that force of light that says, hey, you are divine, you are whole, you are perfect, you are complete. So when they're interacting with you, you are the awakener as the parent that helps them stay in touch with that. That is the greatest gift. I see you. I see who you are. You are like, I see you. Then you remind them. I think that is a huge gift, but it's hard to do that as a parent if you're not in touch with that yourself. Yeah. You know, see, look, as children, here's the thing. As children, we're born free. You know, you look at a child when they're born, they're in touch with the divine self. They're unconditioned. They're beyond stories, beyond labels, beyond, beyond conditioning. They'll jump on the table and they'll sing and they'll shout and they'll cry, and they don't care if they don't, they're not looking at themselves naked going, am I fat, or I can't sing like, Adele. They're just being what they are until they meet their parents. And now we're born into a preset pattern of conditioning, which is why we have to do our work. That preset pattern of conditioning passed down from generations. Maybe dad has a mental health issues, mom has, alcohol issues, they're fighting all the time. So as children, two things happen. We learn to shut down, disconnect, not feel. Shut down, disconnect, not feel, suppress the emotions of pain based on what's going on around us. Layers and 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 layers of unfelt, unprocessed feelings begin to build up, get stored in our body, get turned into illness or some physical ailment. And our true essence gets hidden underneath the unfelt debris of feeling. Anger, fear, shame, resentment, hurt. Then we also learn all sorts of defense mechanisms and strategies in order to not feel. And so we erect walls around our hearts so we're not in touch with our love. And before you know it, we hold so tightly to this way of being so that we never get hurt again. And now we end up more limited because now we go through our entire life in this defensive position to never get hurt again. Then as children, we learn a certain way of being, the sense of who do I need to be in order for dad to love me? In order for mom to love me. Oh, if I'm nice, if I'm sweet, if I'm a caretaker, if I say yes to everything, even though it doesn't feel right. Good boy, good girl. So we develop a role, a persona, and a mask to get love, validation, and approval because we have this feeling that we weren't loved unconditionally.
Yeah. Tell us about your backstory, because you're from Africa, son of a miracle worker, preacher, started preaching at the age of 8. What lies did you start believing? How did your dad facilitate this, understanding of who you are?
Sure. I think, my story, I think one of the most important things that we can do, that my mother did for me, that we can do as parents, is let your kids know, I love you unconditionally, no matter what you do. There's nothing that can stop me from loving who you are. And it's not dependent on your grades. It's not dependent on what you do in the world. It's just dependent on you being you. Yeah. That is the greatest gift we can give our children. And so for me, that's what I received from my mother. I mean, that's the greatest gift I received from my mother. I have the feeling of knowing she wasn't perfect, but I was loved unconditionally by her in such a profound way. And I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana, my mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. We had to flee Ghana because of a bloody political coup at the age of 3. And they were looking for my father because my father was a miracle worker, a healer, built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. Wow. And he was the, shall we say, the mentor, the spiritual teacher to the president of Ghana in the 70s, his closest confidant. He was the spiritual teacher to the king of Ghana, several heads of state. So when there was a coup and they killed the president of Ghana, they were looking for my father. My father, by grace, happened to be in London and we couldn't go back. So my mother and I were in Ghana. We got smuggled out of Ghana to London. And so, my father, it was interesting because a lot of people consider my father a great man, and he is. But from my father, I didn't get that feeling of unconditional love. I got that feeling of very conditional love in a certain way. And so I started speaking in my father's churches when I was age 8. When I was 14, I was ordained as a minister in my father's churches. And so my life, he didn't discuss it with me. He didn't talk to me about it. He didn't sit me down and mentor me and hold my hand, nothing. He just announced to the congregation one Sunday, hey, my son is taking over. This is how it's going to be. He's old school African patriarchal man, not to be a generalization, but old school. And so it's like my way or my way, you choose. And that's my dad. And so when it was announced, thousands of people in the audience, when it was announced, I knew that this wasn't my path. I knew that this wasn't my path, but I was too afraid to speak the truth to my father because I thought if I speak the truth to my father, then I won't be loved. If I speak the truth to my father, I'm going to be outcast. And my fear was if I follow my path, I'm going to lose him. I'm going to lose this relationship. And so out of that fear, I said nothing. I think so many of us as human beings, we're afraid of, if I'm really myself, you won't love me. So we end up allowing fear to hijack us. And so for 4 years, I said nothing. I went along with it, thinking my father would excommunicate me, so to speak. But when I turned 18, I looked into I felt a calling to come to the US. because I wanted to go into the self-help field. And I felt this calling that was so strong to come to Los Angeles. It didn't make any sense. I knew this is where I needed to be, but I knew no one had no money, no support. And I'm like, my father's going to kill me. And I looked into my future, and I saw that I could be successful by everyone's standards and follow the expected path. But if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have who I am, then what kind of success is that? It was just like a self-betrayal, a soul suicide, that if I start lying to myself now, then I'm going to have to lie to myself for the rest of my life. So I grew up thinking, I can't be myself around him. I can't be myself. So my thought was, I need to be nice. I need to be appropriate. I need to be polite. I need to be the good son. I need to be the good kid. I need to get all A's. I need to take care of everyone. I can't have a bad day. Just have to be this perfect little son in order for him to be loved. And it was so limiting in many ways. And so I had to go through my own unconditioning process to really question, like, who am I and what am I? And for me,
but who helped you with that journey? Who helped you? Who helped you listen to that calling? Who facilitated that process of saying, I need to be courageous now, and I actually need to do the hard work?
I was a kid, and I was about 17, 18. And the thing that facilitated it was being honest with myself. The willingness to be honest. When I looked into my future, man, I saw pain, like a future of living a lie. Felt so painful. That's why I tell people, sit with what is the cost of lying to yourself and feel that pain. Don't numb it. Don't run away from it. Feel it. Because if you feel that pain, it's like, wow, if you feel it, it starts to process inside. And for me, the reality of that lie was so painful that I felt it. And I thought, I can't live in this kind of pain the rest of my life, And so it was the willingness to feel that pain. And from that pain, it drove me to make a decision and choose myself. And honestly, it wasn't like anyone special. It was just feeling the pain, acknowledging the truth, and realizing what I had to do. So I had the conversation with my father. Terrifying. Sometimes people say, you need to be fearless and get rid of fear. No, sometimes when you get in touch with your purpose and your truth, it's even more scary because the stakes are higher, and you don't know how you're going to do it because your soul is calling you to a whole nother level. And so I had this conversation with my father, completely terrified, shaking in my boots, the whole conversation. And all he said was, I said, don't think I can take over. And he said, are you sure? I said, yes. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. We didn't speak for 2 years. And it was honestly really heartbreaking. I think he was very disappointed. And that's when I felt like, wow, love is conditional, and at least I made up the story. Love is conditional. I'm not supported. No one's really there. I mean, my mother was there for me, but love isn't there for you, And these were my beliefs that I had to, over the course of the next 10, 15 years, I had to shed and let go, because and really part of that letting go happened when I came to the US, and I had to talk about healing. I had to face the anger that I had to my father that I wasn't acknowledging. Really, there was anger, there was pain, there was heartbreak, there was sadness, and there was grief. And the real healing for me happened when I went through the stages and really faced the level of grief and pain that I felt of not feeling my needs met, not feeling he loved me, not feeling that support. And it was through feeling that pain that underneath that I was able to get in touch with the profound love that I had and forgive him. And it's in that forgiveness that so much healing happened and so much was freed up for me, and our relationship really began to transform.
But Kute, it's the minority that take the seed of suffering, the seed of pain, feel that pain, and then make the changes. I think of Nelson Mandela, him feeling the pain, what he's done, and how he used that, not in resentment and bitterness when he came out, but he used it for the vision, the purpose, the influence, just the calling, the essence that he had. But it's not common ground. Maybe 90, 95% of people do not move into that courageous place and make those choices. They're living on this, this in this world, just running on this treadmill, just being enslaved to disease, enslaved to finances and debt. How are we going to change the generations? And it's very difficult to change adults. There've been, thoughts and beliefs have been firing and wiring together. Mindsets and attitudes have developed. And that's why I'm asking the question about children and youngsters. How do we make people courageous to ask those honest sort of, questions of themselves?
I don't think you can make people change. I don't think you can, Jesus came and the world is still what it is. Buddha came, bro. Jesus, not to offend anyone, Jesus came and the world is still kind of a mess. Buddha came, the world is still kind of a mess. Lao Tzu came with all the enlightened being, and the world is still what it is. And so I think we have to just look at that and be humble. To me, it's not about changing anyone. It's about changing ourselves. Really, it's about taking the responsibility to say, okay, let me change myself. Let me not just look to the world, because you can't change the president and you can't change, 4 million people. You can't change the government, but what you can do is change yourself. And I think when we really look inside and do our own work and say, okay, who do I need to forgive? I need to forgive my dad. And I had to ask myself, yeah, maybe I'm right about he is this and he's that. But what I had to look at, and this is where the change happened for me, is being right about how right I am isn't making me happy. Number one, isn't bringing me more freedom. Number two, and isn't bringing us closer. Number three. So do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Do I want to be right or do I want to be free? And it just came a point where I was so freaking miserable in suffering that I realized, what is it serving? I want to be happy. And there was no alternative that I had in that moment other than realizing I can hold on to being right and suffering, or I can deal with myself, feel what I need to feel, forgive, and maybe stand a chance of being more fulfilled and happy. And so there comes a moment where we have to commit and make a choice. There's no other way around it. We have to commit and make a choice. And if we don't, guess what? Sorry to say, the good news is life will give you more pain. Life will give you more suffering until you eventually crack open and say, I surrender. I surrender. And I think, in the evolutionary process of life, that is part of maybe the purpose of some suffering and pain. Because if there wasn't, and everything was all bliss and light all the time, we would never freaking change. And so sometimes it's only the pain and the suffering and the heartbreak that cracks our egoic shell and defense mechanisms open to say, I can't do it this way anymore.
Yeah.
The way I'm doing it isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
And so either we resist and stay stuck and experience more suffering in life, or we make the choice. There comes a point when you and I, we have to make the choice. We have to make the choice to say, I want freedom. The question I ask people in my seminars is, what do you want more than anything else? Because people say they want, I want to transform. I want to transform. When I challenge them, I say, no, you don't. They're like, yes, I do. No, you don't. You don't. They're like, what do you mean? I just paid you. But you don't want to transform because you're more attached to staying comfortable. You're more attached to living in suffering because it's the known. And so the question I ask people is, we have to ask ourselves, what do I want more than anything else? The reason we don't truly transform is we don't want to. We have an unconscious payoff for staying where we are. We have sometimes there's a fear of, oh shit, if I really transform and let go, what will that mean for my relationship? Like, I know that my relationship won't be able to sustain. And so because we're afraid of that, we keep ourselves small. And even though it's suffering, at least it won't break up the relationship, because we know if we really come into our full self, oh shit, this is not going to work anymore. And so we have to look at what is the sneaky unconscious conflict that we have going on? What is the unconscious payoff that we have for not transforming? If we can just acknowledge that and get honest about that, then we can deal with that. Like, I'm afraid that my relationship's going to be over. I'm afraid that fill in the blank. What is the conflict? What is the unconscious payoff? And deal with the fear of that. Then I think if we can see that, like, oh, this is why I'm not transforming. This is why I'm staying stuck. Then I think we can meet ourselves with the compassion and the empathy. Because when we can meet ourselves with the compassion and the empathy, then that egoic holding on can relax. See, the ego that we think we're this ego structure, our sense of identified self. The ego's job is to reinforce its sense of existence. And the ego's job is to make sure we don't get hurt again, like we were hurt when we were 5. And so I'm never gonna get hurt again. And in order to never get hurt again, I'm gonna hold on for dear life so that I don't open up, so I never get hurt again. Yeah. And I'm gonna control everything in my life so I never get hurt again. So if we can understand that the ego doesn't want to change, but the ego wants everything and everyone else to change. But life doesn't work that way. But when rather than judging that, if we can understand, oh, I have compassion for the ego because it's just trying to keep me safe. And I'm not the ego. It's just a pattern of holding on that I've learned. And when we can meet ourselves with that compassion, that's where the healing happens. And that's when we can just start loving ourselves through our fear, because it's fear that stops us letting go and transforming. Then we can start loving ourselves through that fear. And then we can start slowly opening up again, you know? And so for me, just to wrap this question, I would just say, your job is not to change anybody. Your job is to change yourself. When you change yourself, come into integrity, come into alignment, come into wholeness, then your energy shifts. Then you live your life with such a level of excellence and inspiration and integrity that people will start coming to you and saying, what's the deal? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, I'm inspired by you. Yeah. And people you don't even know will watch you and they'll be inspired by you. And they'll begin to make changes because they'll look at you and go, I want to be like that. Or they'll look at you and go, if he can do it and shift his life, maybe I can. So your life then becomes the example of possibility for people where you're not talking about it or telling people, you're just being the change. Like there was an example of Gandhi. Gandhi's one of my inspirations too. Obviously no one's perfect, but it was still an inspiration for me. A mother brought her son to Gandhi. And she says, Gandhi, my son is a sugarholic and you're a great man. I believe if you tell my son to stop eating sugar, he's going to listen to you. Gandhi looked at the son and looked at the mother and he said, come back in 3 weeks. Now the mother just came from a long way. She didn't have a lot of money. So she said, okay, the great soul Mahatma Gandhi said, come back in 3 weeks. Who am I to argue? She came back 3 weeks later on the day. She said, Gandhi, I don't know if you remember me. You said, come back in 3 weeks. I'm here. My son is a sugarholic. Can you tell him to stop eating sugar? He looked at the son and said, hey, stop eating sugar. And she said to him, why did you not just tell him this 3 weeks ago? It would have saved us a whole lot of time. He says, 3 weeks ago, I was eating sugar. And so be the change. Yeah. I think when we can be the change, we have much more of a transformational impact. And the world that we see is a mirror manifestation of you and I. The world that we see is a mirror manifestation of our collective consciousness combined. So when we look at the world, it's so easy to look at the leaders and to look at those people and go, oh, they need to change, or that person has no integrity, and Trump is a liar, and Biden is this, and that person's that, and my mother's that, and so on was that. It's easy to look at these people and think these things. But if the world is a mirror manifestation of our consciousness collectively combined, then what we are in relationship with is ourselves. We are in relationship with an aspect of ourselves projected out there in the form of other people. And so if we really get, there is no out there, there is really in here projected out there, there's only one, then we know, wow, if I change myself and I look at, I don't look at that person and that person go, oh, they're lying, they're out of integrity. I look at myself and go, where do I lie? where am I out of integrity? Not where is Donald Trump out of integrity, or where my neighbor is out of integrity, or where that president is out of, where am I, where am I out of integrity? Where do I not tell the truth? Where am I terrorizing myself? Where am I dropping bombs of self-judgment and self-hatred on myself? And how can I forgive? How can I love? How can I heal the division in my own consciousness from my own divine self and my own human self and come into alignment? Because if we do that, then we do our part. And as we change, we project a different reflection on the planet. So we have to start with ourselves.
It reminds me of the great spirit of Ubuntu in South Africa. I am because we are. And I think is that connection with one another, that connection of being true to ourselves, of showing those virtues and values that we want to see in the world, firstly, impacts others within our communities, the people we touch, feel, see, whether it's the coffee barista, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's your child, whether it's your teacher, whether it's a colleague. I think that field, that force, that electromagnetic or biomagnetic essence that is emanating from us has dramatic impacts on the people around us. Would you agree?
For sure, for sure. The resonance, the resonance, yeah.
When you're in that space now, Kute, you heard this calling. People are trying to find their purpose. I really believe I found mine, living it out wherever I can, being the essence that I am to inspire and empower people, to a superhuman health and performance so that they can thrive in life. That's a summary of my purpose and my essence wherever I go. What process do you take people on so they can hear the calling that you felt and said, listen, I'm going to the States. I'm going to go into self-help. I'm going to go and teach people. I'm going to be this transformational teacher. I'm going to be this author, incredible author. I'm going to be doing these transformational trips in Bali. Incredible website. We'll put that into the link in terms of what you're doing. But how do people find their calling and purpose?
There's a couple of ways. I think we can look at it from the soul, spiritual level for a second, then the human level for a second. I will tell people on a spiritual level, stop looking for your purpose, seeking your purpose, let's just start there. Seeking your purpose is taking you further and further away from your purpose. The ego wants to seek and seek and seek and never find, because the seeking reinforces its existence. And so firstly, on a spiritual level, please understand, if you can understand that you are a spiritual being, you are a soul incarnated having a human experience. And as you're having this human experience, you incarnate in order to learn, to grow, to evolve. That's why we're here, to learn, to grow, to evolve, because maybe there's certain lessons that we are here to learn as souls. And because of that, life is a school, a university for our soul's evolution. And every single experience of life is part of the curriculum and the learning for our soul's evolution, so that we can become more, realize more of who we really are, learn those lessons, and reawaken and remember our true divinity, our true source, our true essence. And if that's the case, everything in life is serving your awakening, and every experience in life, so long as you remember the purpose of life is your evolution. That means every moment of your life, not so much what you do, but every moment of your life then becomes the opportunity to live your purpose. Every moment becomes the opportunity to live your purpose, whether you're cleaning the street, whether you're president, whether you're biohacking, health guru, whether you're, a taxi driver. Every moment becomes, it's not what you do. Every moment, so long as you're learning the lessons available in every moment and growing and evolving and becoming more of your authentic self, is the purpose. So there's never a moment on a spiritual level that is not your purpose, so long as you're evolving. Evolution is your purpose. So that's one, because at the end of your life, you don't take anything with you. You don't take an Oscar, a book, a prize, nothing. The only thing you take with you is the evolution of your consciousness and who you became. That's it, nothing else. And so to me, that's real success. Now, to break it down on a more individual level, but how do I find my individual purpose? Like, what do I do with myself in this adventure called life? I'm going to say the same answer I'll break it down into 4 questions. Stop seeking your purpose. Again, once again, sometimes we seek and we seek. We want to put our purpose on a nice little piece of paper and go, oh, this is my purpose. But purpose is evolutionary. And depending on the level of our consciousness in a given moment, what your purpose is when you were age 5 is not your purpose when you were age 20, is not your purpose when you were age 40, is not your purpose when you're 60. So purpose is going to evolve. So your purpose is the essence of what you are. So sometimes this addiction to seeking and finding what your purpose is another egoic way to not live it, to stay on the sidelines, and we try to figure everything out before we live it. So stop seeking your purpose and instead just go. Like, you don't have to know what your purpose is in order to find it. Just move in the direction of what turns you on. Move in the direction of what lights you up. Move in the direction of what makes you feel alive, what makes your soul come alive. If you move in the direction of, this is my aliveness, but how am I going to make money? Just take a step in that direction. When you take a step, life will show you the next. And you take another step, life will reveal to you the next. You take another. So life reveals to you the next step of your purpose in the process of living life itself. Every step reveals the next step. So it's a revelation. And then all of a sudden, 5 years, 10 years later, you might look around and go, wow, I'm living it. But you've lived into it. And every step was part of the necessary evolution, growth, and preparation for you to learn what you needed to learn so that you could become who you need to become, so that you were more ripened and ready, so that each step helped you develop the mental, emotional, psychological muscle and soul force. But if you stood on the sideline and just tried to figure it out from here, you never took the step, you would not have grown. You would not have grown. It's like Mandela, 26, 27 years in prison. This is crazy. But should he have not spent that time in prison? What if he didn't spend that time in prison? I think that time in prison was part of his soul gymnasium to develop that level of soul force, that level of compassion, that level of understanding, that level of forgiveness, so that when he came out, he was cooked, he was ripened. But what if he didn't take the step? He couldn't have come out Mandela from the side. He might have wanted to be that, but he had to go through the process that took him being cooked. So number 1, go in the direction of what makes you most alive. What makes me most alive? Move in that direction. Number 2, ask yourself, what tangible, specific skills do I have? So love and alive is just not enough. What skills? Like, I love Formula 1 racing. But bro, I'm not going to be a Formula 1 racer in this lifetime. I don't, I would like to think, but I doubt it, right? These guys have been doing it since they were 2 years old. Yeah, exactly. So you have to have some tangible skills. So it's not just Pollyanna. What tangible skills? So if we look at your entire life, if you look at all of your experiences, if you look at everything you've been, sometimes this is why it's important to take a step, because you might look back and go, wow, that job I did that I hated for a year, that job I did when I was 25, that job I did when I was 18, that job that I really just couldn't stand, but there was something in that position that you learned, a skill set that you learned that was a necessary puzzle piece of your purpose that now comes together. Maybe you learn how to code, maybe you learned accounting, maybe you learn discipline, maybe you learn express word writing business plans, right? Maybe you learn SEO, something on Google, and now you're like, I see how it fits into my purpose. So look at the tangible skills that you have. Everything was part of the necessary preparation. Number 3, look at the unique gifts. What makes you unique? The unique gifts. And based on that, what problems you are uniquely able to solve. What is the unique problem in the world that you're able to solve? I always tell people, don't focus on making money necessarily. Focus on being of service. And you are of service when you add value. And you add value when you solve a pain, problem, or challenge. Sometimes we think we're adding value, but we're not solving a pain, problem, or challenge. You add value when you're solving a pain, problem, or challenge. And so then you go, what are the pain? Look at Elon Musk. Like him or hate him, he's solving problems. Jeff Bezos, like him or hate him, he's solving problems. And as a result, you're being of service. So how can I be of service? By adding value. And what specific pain, problem, or challenges am I uniquely able to solve with my skill and my talent? Lastly, ask yourself, what group of people do I feel a connection to? What group of people do I feel an affinity to. Maybe it's the blind, maybe it's the elderly, maybe it's teenage pregnant mothers, maybe it's, you know, teenage boys, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's the whales, maybe, you know, whatever group of people you feel a connection to, like a warmth to, karmically might show you who you are here to serve in this life. And so when you can answer those 4 questions, that can at least, not that it's your ultimate purpose, but it can at least navigate you in the direction to start moving forward. Then there's a continual process of evolution that happens and course correction that happens in the quest of living what you're here to live.
Sure. Fantastic summary. Great, Kute. I want to talk about your daily sort of routine. And you're a healthy, strong guy, mind, body, spirit. You obviously you want to keep this tent and this body that's going to serve you for a long time, keep the mind very sharp so that you can obviously teach, carry on living out your essence and your purpose. Tell us about your day, when it starts, what you do, you know, what type of meditation, what type of exercise, you know, what type of soul work or spiritual, emotional work that you do.
Honestly, it's nothing complicated. I think people complicate life, to be honest. And I think it's pretty simple, because I really believe there is an innate intelligence inside of us that knows what to do, honestly. And the more we can live in harmony with that innate intelligence rather than overriding it, it knows what to do. And so for me, it's simple. There's a few things that are non-negotiable. I drink about a gallon of water every day. Feels good for my body because I exercise every day as well. But for me, the key is, see, I see a lot of people that do all these crazy things, man. They hang upside down and they're doing ozone this and that. And I do some of these things too, but they're doing all this shit, but they're not consistent. They do it 1 day here, 2 days there, 1 week here, this crazy keto, muto diet, you know, and they're like shredded for like 3 days, 3 weeks, and then they're like 400 pounds overweight the next month. And it's for me, the key is consistency. Every day I exercise about an hour a day, every day. That means when I'm doing my boundless Bali journeys and I'm working 18, 19, 20 hours a day, I exercise.
Wow.
That means if I have to get on a plane and I have to be at the airport at 5 a.m., I wake up at 2 and I exercise. It's consistent.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. It's not this crazy things you see on Instagram, like, holy, how is he doing it? But it's consistent. For me, life is not a race. Life is a process. And so I'm consistent, an hour of exercise pretty much every day, running, HIIT training, you know, high interval fitness training, you know, sometimes the gym when I have access to it. I have access a bit less now, but so it's a combination of that. That's non-negotiable because for me, that sets the foundation. It wakes me up, it clears my brain, gets the blood flowing, you know. Usually once a day I meditate 15, 20 minutes, sometimes longer. There was a period in my life, honestly, many years ago when I was broke and almost homeless, I had nothing to do and nowhere to go, that there was a period in my life for about 6 months where I was meditating about 6 hours a day, 2-3 hours in the morning, 2-3 hours in the afternoon, because I mean, what else am I going to do? And so I use that time to meditate and really go deep. And I still feel the foundation of that. There are periods of time where I feel the need to go deeper in that, and so I'll just sit and I'll spend more time. But for me, it's consistency. You know, it could be 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. Sometime in the day, I'm not as militant as it has to be in the morning or has to be at night. Let's see. I like to journal, you know, sometimes it's daily, but it's a couple of times a week. At least I'll just get my thoughts and stuff out. I'm into exploring with some things like, you know, this is more the sort of hacking side, like hyperbaric oxygen. I'm doing that 2-3 times a month. The red light bed, I'm doing about 2-3 times a month. I do IVs, especially because I travel a lot now, maybe once or twice a month. And so I'll do these things, cryotherapy 3-4 times a month. But for me, these things aren't a replacement of the foundation. They're just a bonus to sort of optimize, you know, because I really believe that you can't hack your way into health. You can't hack your way. It's a consistent, intentional, committed process that is required. And, you know, health is vitality, health is energy for me. And I think you're really healthy when, and health is energy, and energy is energy in motion, and emotion is energy in motion. And so I think the lighter we are, the more we process the unresolved emotional issues, the lighter we are,
Yeah.
the more our energy circulates, our chi circulates, the higher our vibration, the more energy we have. The more energy we have. So if you're eating the most amazing green juice, but you're carrying anger, shame, fear, hurt, resentment
Yeah.
towards your parents and everyone else, and your ex, and your ex's ex, and your ex's cat, then I'm sorry, you're not going to be operating in peak aliveness of vitality. I don't care how much cryotherapy you do. You see what I'm saying?
Beautiful, beautiful, Kute. I want you to talk about Africa, Kute, because my parents came from Cyprus. I've got Greek heritage. They came to this continent. I've got a real affinity for the African people. I love the African people. I love the spirit of community and Ubuntu. But it's almost seemed like, the Africa is sort of the dark child of the world, the problem child. There's no value,
don't get me started, man.
And just give a message of hope. I know we're coming to the end of the show now, and I want to respect and honor your time.
Africa, bro, Africa, let's just get this straight. Africa is the birth of human civilization. Africa is the birth of, this isn't some propaganda, but if we do our research, it said that the first human being, all human beings originate from Africa. Possibly Ethiopia in the form of Lucy, possibly even before that, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, Chad could even be the first human being was found in Chad even before Lucy. So the fact is, whether you're blonde, Israeli, Japanese, human beings originated the first from Africa. That's number one. That ain't like because I'm African, that's just kind of facts that they're finding scientifically. Secondly, I'll say, so if you look at so much of the civilizations, development, astronomy, right, and mathematics came out of Africa, Egypt, and different so much of the development of the world came from Africa. That's number two. We have to understand that. And then number three, so much of the wealth, this is going to be tough for people to hear, but so much of the wealth of the world, the wealth of the United Kingdom, the wealth of Belgium, King Leopold, do your research, the wealth of France came out of the colonization of African nations and the brutal, I would say, brutal plundering of African resources for Western profit. This is fact. This ain't my opinion. This is reality. The jewels, the gold, the diamond have been stolen, and Africa sadly has been raped and pillaged by Western nations. This has to stop. Now, France as an example, and I love France, colonized many parts of Africa. When France left and they signed, I forget the name, but the pact of the end of continuation of colonization, ending the colonization of Africa. In that pact was an agreement where the countries that they colonized still had to pay and put their money in the French Reserve. And that accounts to hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion yearly. So literally, countries like France, even though they ended colonization, which was already bad enough, still are benefiting from the financial resources of African nations. So how do we actually have the ignorance and audacity as a humanity to say the dark child of the world, when in fact, so much of the cobalt, so much of the chips that Tesla makes, made in Africa, made in Congo right now by children in slave labor. We have the audacity to say, oh, Africa is the dark child. In fact, Africa, I think, has given humanity so much that we haven't. It's easier for us to say, Africa, third world country, let's give them some money. rather than empowering Africa,
Yeah.
rather than truly empowering, because here's the thing, if we empower Africa, then there's a benefit to having Africa disempowered.
Yeah.
Because if Africa is disempowered, then the Western world can profit off of the resources of Africa. And if you look at countries like, and I love China, China going in and colonizing Africa all over again with loans into governments. And I mean, that's a whole nother trip. But we have to really start understanding that Africa is a rich source of minerals, of resources, of land, of spiritual education, and the contribution that Africa has had on humanity is massive. And I think it's time, just like it's time for the feminine on the planet to rise again and be honored, it's time that Africa is honored again on the planet. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
No, sure. And I think if you can just wrap up with a message of hope to South Africans and Africans, they go through a lot of distress. South Africa is the second most stressful country to live in the world, according to Bloomberg, you know, in terms of crime, in terms of safety, in terms of these basic human needs. But give a message of hope. I mean, you've got African blood through you. You've got family. I assume I've had a lot of Ghanaian patients. I love them to bits. And obviously we need some more hope in this country, in this continent.
Look, it's tough. You know, anything I say is going to be limited because there are realities that are difficult, you know. And first and foremost, I'll say, remember that you're a soul, and you're a soul that has made a courageous decision to incarnate in Africa. And that is no accident. You've incarnated in Africa for a reason, and that is a courageous choice. Trust the reason you've incarnated in Africa. There's no accident. You've incarnated in Africa for a reason, to do something, to make a contribution. And so nobody's coming. So often we look to our governments, we look to some great leader, we look to, you know, another nation. But as Africans, we have to realize no one's going to do it for us anymore. The Western world ain't going to do it. UK's not going to do it. You know, Buddha's not going to. No one is coming to save us. We have to believe in ourselves, realize the power that we have, step into that power and share those gifts the best we can, and believe in ourselves and do it together. And I think if, as Africans, you do that, we do that, we will rise, because we have the resources, we have the creativity, and you have the people. And so believe. It's time to believe in who you are and what you really are, and drop the brainwashing and conditioning, you know, because there's gifts that you have to give the world, and it's time. It's time.
Beautiful. Kute Blackson, I declare favor and blessing over you, that you would live out your essence, your calling, who you are. I thank you for the work that you're doing, this transformational teacher, your books, You Are the One, The Magic of Surrender. We'll put links to that, you know, your website, the journeys that you're doing in Bali. You're just an inspiration to many. You're a courageous man. You know, I just think I've been listening to you a lot and just thinking about the sort of, you know, analogies to Nelson Mandela being so courageous, to going out there, you know, against all odds, and really just being who you are amongst a very westernized country. You were able to rise up against all odds. So yeah, favor and blessing to you, supernatural health to you, that you would vibrate at a frequency to transform and help and facilitate many people.